This is a production of Cornell University.
Welcome to our main research field at Cornell AgriTech. We have 12 research farms here, a little under 900 acres. And this is the main one that we use for annual crops. You'll see we do have a few perennial crop plots here as well. But this is our small plot variety trial. And we model this protocol based on the common protocol agreed upon by the S1084 USDA Hemp Multistate Research Program. And Bob Pearce has been leading that for the last several years, so I'm going to hand over the mic to Bob to basically give an overview of what we're trying to accomplish as a nationwide group of land-grant researchers in that USDA organized program.
Thank you very much, Larry, and good afternoon, everybody. So as Larry said, I have been coordinating what we call the multi-state. We started out calling it a multi-state dual-purpose trial because we were looking at grain and fiber off of the same plant. I think this is the first year, Larry, that we've actually separated it out into grain-dedicated trials and fiber-dedicated trials. Some of the varieties, some of the cultivars you'll see in both trials, because we think that they could have utility as either one or the other, depending upon what part of the country we're in. And that's one of the values of this trial is, I think I heard him mention this morning, looking at latitudinal adaptation. And we have cooperators in this trial from Louisiana all the way up, of course, here to New York and Vermont, Montana. We've had cooperators in the past, so we get that latitudinal variation within this program. Now, I've been coordinating this since 2019. Actually, it was a predecessor of mine, Dr. David Williams, who along with Larry and some others established the S1084 group. And then a year or two later, I was asked to take over some of that coordination of this project. Tara came on and worked for me shortly after that, so we kind of grew this program together to a certain extent. And so what we have tried to do is we solicit seeds from the breeders or the seed companies that are willing to share some seeds with us. We want to know more about how these varieties are going to perform over a wide range of areas. And then we redistribute those seeds out to cooperators, as I said, kind of all across the country with a standard protocol. And there are some variations. For example, here, this looks like this was a clean tillage field to start with. In Kentucky, we found out that ours works better if we're no-tilling into a cover crop wheat. So there are some variations in management practices across some of the locations, but we're all, for example, everybody is shooting for the same target planting population of seeds. Now, because of our conditions, we wind up with different actual plant populations in the field, but we're all targeting the same planting density. We're generally following the same planting pattern of a 7.5 to an 8-inch row in similar plot sizes, trying to follow similar protocols when it comes to the harvest and management of these things, so that we are trying to look at some of the genetics by environment interaction that we're going to see across all of these various locations. In 2019, I think we started out with like 10 or 12 cooperators, and I think we had maybe 10 cultivars that first time, 10 or 12, somewhere in there. We've tried to keep the number of cultivars that we're testing in any one year around that 12 to 15 range, just because we know that everybody has got other priorities, research priorities and things that they're working on. So we've kind of tried to keep that somewhat manageable. One thing I will say about this does fall under the S1084 multi-state banner, and a lot of people, I think, assume that because of that this is a funded project. Okay? That's not the way hedge funds work, which is what supports the multi-state groups. Our collective college administrations generally keep most of that funding. We don't see it directly at the research level. Do get a little bit of help from our administration with acquiring the seeds and shipping, but largely in terms of the cost to the participants, they've got to come up with a way to fund this as well. That's quite a bit different than what you'll see in a lot of other commercial crops. In our case in Kentucky, we've got a four-man group that handles our corn, soybean, and wheat variety testing. Right? If you want to enter a variety in that, you have to pay. That is a charge that comes with entering varieties. So far, we have not done that with this multi-state operation. So for those of you that maybe are breeders or have seed companies or something like that, you might want to get in. This is a deal right now. So, you know, I think it is a good thing for us for an industry in order to see how these things are going to pan out over a wide range. There have definitely been some challenges that we have faced in terms of acquiring seed. I know that, you know, if you're a breeder or you're a seed company and you've got seeds, obviously you want to protect your intellectual property. And we're aware of that, and we want to help do that, but it's sometimes really difficult to get all of those agreements signed, because we want to grow your varieties. You probably want us to grow your varieties, but our attorneys don't give a damn whether or not we grow the varieties or not. And they don't really, you know, the thing that I have trouble getting across to them is I need to have this seed in March or April in order to be able to distribute it to our cooperators so they can get it out in a timely fashion. And by the time we go back and forth half a dozen times between attorneys, and it gets to be June the 1st, and you know, I still don't have seed, or we haven't come to agreement. There's been a lot of times that we've not been able to grow some of the cultivars that we want. So I guess my point with that is that if you got something that you'd be interested in putting in, but you know you've got some sort of a material transfer agreement or an IP agreement, get started with us on that early. Because when we got these multiple universities, sometimes we have to negotiate with each one of them individually. We'd much prefer, you know, if we can get to a point where, you know, a single agreement is going to cover everybody, so that we can kind of have an opportunity to get these varieties out in a much more timely fashion. So that's what we're working towards in the future. You know, to try to be a little bit more timely with this. I will say that just recently, I think it was January, we finally got the first round of this trial was published. Dr. Zach Brim in Florida and his student Ajit Williams were the lead authors on that study, and so we are beginning to publish this information. Group has already started to work on the next 3 years of data to again try to look maybe at some more of these genetic by environmental interactions and understand a little bit more about what's going on with that. But our goals for that program, you know, are to try to help drive this breeding process, to look at, you know, what things are adaptable under different conditions, provide feedback back to the breeders, back to the seed companies, and then ultimately on to our growers, you know, so that we can grow this industry and figure out, you know, how are we going to increase those seed yields. We heard a lot about that this morning. That's the ultimate goal, is making sure that, you know, a grower in New York knows the cultivars that to pick for that location. A grower in Kentucky or a grower in Tennessee or wherever they may be has the opportunity to choose a cultivar that is well adapted to the conditions that they're going to have in their specific location. So that's the point of that program. Be happy to talk to any of you about, you know, if you've got, particularly if you've got new cultivars that are coming along that you'd like to see in a program like this. You know, again, start talking to us early so we can try to work out some of those issues with that. One thing I will say, going back to, I think the first years, 19 and 20, when we did this, our average yields on these trials were probably 400 or 500, maybe. You know, we've slowly increased it. We're getting better. Our learning curve has been pretty steep too, but we're getting better and better. I think the best yield I probably had those first couple of years was maybe around 500 pounds. We had a cultivar last year that went over 2,300. Now these are hand harvested small plots, not production scale, but you know, we're seeing that potential coming up, right? And some of that is coming from some of these new cultivars and hybrids and things. I'm really excited to see the hybrids coming out more and more now, and I think we'll see some big jumps in that. So that's a little bit about that program. Larry, I don't know if we have time for a question or two.
Yeah, we have time.
Okay. If anybody has any questions about that, and then we'll actually maybe talk a little bit about some of the specific cultivars and the trial that you see here. But that's kind of a general overview of the S1084 multi-state trial.
Bob, how many states?
How many states? This past year, I think we sent out 15.
Wow.
15 packets of material to cooperators.
Nice.
So, and of that, I think some of them are doing trials at 2 locations. I know we've got 2 locations here. I think you're doing 2 different timings of plantings for the grain, for just the grain, and so some of those locations may have multiple sites, or in your case, multiple timings of applications. So altogether, we get out about 20 of them. I think in 2019, out of those 10 or 12 we sent out, I think I got 3 back that year that actually produced data. Some of them became weedy messes and various things like that. Each year it's gotten a little bit better, but I think last year we got at least half of the sites back, if not a little bit more. We still really struggle. The 2 sites we struggle the most with are the one in Louisiana and the one in Alabama. I can never get them seed on time. In fact, they held the seed that we sent them this spring to plant next spring.
And Washington too.
Yeah, Washington as well. Yeah, you're right, Washington as well. They're holding on to the seed that we sent last year in order to try to for a timely planting in the spring of 2026. So just some challenges there. And I think Louisiana, they're actually doing a fall planting of materials to look at it there. So giving us a range of different things. Yeah, Sarah.
So are you harvesting according to maturity, or take it down all at once?
Each location kind of has their different ways of doing that. In our particular location, we are harvesting as they mature. You know, because we've got something like, you know, we've got Billy Bretsky and some things like that in there. If we waited, well, if I waited for all to mature, I wouldn't have any seed left on anything by the time that one matured in our plots. But if, you know, we've already harvested about a half of the grain varieties at our location, because if we wait, we're going to put more seed on the ground than we're actually going to capture, because of some of them having such a difficult time with retaining seed. So
is that obvious when the results come out from the different universities? Is this a one-cut method or by maturity? Is that like pretty clear in the outline?
I think
by maturity.
Yeah. I think we try to do it mostly by maturity.
Each university, but the universities that do the one-cut, do they say that?
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, we definitely know the ones that are doing that. So, are you people still doing it? What's that, harvesting? Well, I think whenever we have the North Dakota site at Johnston, Burton Johnson,
He does it all in one day.
I think he's doing everything with a combine. So I think he's doing everything at one time with a combine.
What are you able to use for the weed control? This all looks like.
So 2 years ago now. Okay. Question was, what are we using for weed control? And I think it was about 2 years ago. There's a product called Sonolin. Ethafluralin is the active ingredient of it. It's a dinitroaniline, pre-plant emergent. That got labeled in the U.S. And so I think most of us in the trials have switched to using that now for our weed control. Have you done anything else in this particular field? Okay. So yeah, that's what we're using right now. Anything else?
I have one question.
Yes.
You mentioned hybrids. Are any of the cultivars you guys have out here F1 hybrids? And then additionally, both for fiber and grain, what do you think the future of F1 hybrids are going to be, but then also separately for flower.
Okay. The question is about hybrids and whether any of the ones out here are hybrids. I don't think we have any hybrids in the trial yet. That's one of those IP things. People are holding on to those pretty tight right now. Outside of this program, I know in our case we are testing some of the hybrids separately in just our in-house trials that we're running. But we haven't been able to convince anybody yet to put them in there. I mean, Larry's much better on the breeding side of things than I am, but I think hybrids is probably the future of the industry. You know, I think that's going to be where we're going to go. I mean, that's the best way to incorporate improved traits rapidly into a system. Plus, has anybody done a study on hybrid vigor yet on hemp? He's smiling.
Not that's published.
Not that's published. Okay. There you go. You heard it here first. So you know, I do feel like that's probably going to be, as it is with corn or you know, even wheat these days, that the hybrid's probably going to be the way that it's going to go in the future. I think there's a lot of advantages to that.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Well, thank you very much, Larry. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and interact with everybody.
Thanks a lot, Bob. Just answer your question. It's a great question about hybrids. I do think that is the future for cultivar development, but it's extremely expensive to develop those hybrids and test them. And for me, it's been a question of do I assign a student, do I try to recruit a graduate student to develop all of those inbred lines over multiple years and then do a very vast matrix of crosses, and crosses are hard to do in hemp because of the pollen movement, to prove the hybrid vigor. I'll just say we do have a system now for developing hybrids that we think is pretty efficient, and we tested those F1 hybrids last year in the field and saw significant hybrid vigor for a particular trait, and we just need to find the funding to repeat that. Okay, I'm going to call out Luis and Jacob, and I'm going to give an introduction and overview of the trial. You've already met Luis, and I want to introduce Jacob Bish, who is a research support specialist in my group. And as Luis finishes up his work for his dissertation, we have now passed on management of these small plot trials to Jacob. So again, the goal of these trials is to provide unbiased, uniform comparison of cultivars under a well-established standard protocol. So we plant 7.5-inch spacing, 6-row cone cedar, 20 feet long. We've been doing that for a while. For the grain plots, we used to, under Luis's management, we would actually plant 3 passes of the planter. So we had 18 rows per cultivar. This year, just to save on resources, and because some of the seed was short, we only planted a single pass in the grain trial. Our goal is to plant the fiber trial as early as possible. And this year, so again, I'll point out that we have a handout describing this here, a couple of handouts actually. And if you didn't pick up a hard copy, I have the QR code here. So, point your camera at Luis. So the fiber plots over here were planted June 2nd, and we have 11 cultivars in there, plus Future 83 as our guard row on the outside. The first grain, and so is that the earliest we can plant? June 2nd in New York? It was this year. It was incredibly wet in the month of May, And we would have liked to have targeted, May 10th, May 15th. That's usually the earliest planting date we have for peas or for other early crops, but it was just too wet. So the earliest we could get on this field this year was June 2nd. For the dedicated grain plants, I think we planted June 17th. I think that's actually probably a sweet spot planting date for grain. If you plant earlier, these are going to get even taller, and our intention this year was to harvest these grain plots with the Almaco small plot combine. And the more biomass you put through that, the more likely it is to clog that particular combine. So I think planting in the middle of June, you're right before the solstice. I think that's sort of the sweet spot, but definitely, you're going to see here in a little while, trying to identify the optimum planting date for different cultivars is really important. So we had a very wet May, and then it stopped raining. And the trial, the first grain planting date actually probably got flooded, and we had some poor germination because of overly wet soils. And then it stopped raining and we got crusting. You can see that this soil is pretty susceptible to crusting. And if you get crust even like this, the hemp seeds will only start coming up through the cracks in the crust. And when you see that, you know that you're not going to get good stand establishment if the only ones that are coming up are the ones coming through the cracks. So then we decided to do a second planting date on July 15th. And it was very dry in the month of July. Again, poor stand establishment. So you can see here, very few of the grain plots, or none of the grain plots hit our expected stand density. But what I want you to note is how clean the plots are. And there are differences in weed density by cultivar, for sure. I have been very impressed by the effectiveness of sonolin as an herbicide for weed management. And then, even for the July planting date and the lack of rain that we got in July, that amount of growth is pretty impressive. Okay, so the next thing I want to do, and then I'll do you guys have anything more to add?
Yeah, so as Larry was mentioning, we've got our fiber trials over here, and just like Bob was saying, we are harvesting these according to the maturity date. So these are all coming down as I assess these weekly, and we identify which ones are coming into flower maturity. Once they reach about 50% flowering, we go ahead and cut those down. Over here, I use a little walk-behind sickle just to cut that crop, and then we bring some scales out to weigh it up. We're over here, we're getting to our harvest date here shortly. We're again assessing flowering maturity and then waiting 6 to 8 weeks after that to harvest the grain. So we will be bringing this Almaco plot combine out here in the next few weeks and plugging that up a few times to get this material through. But yeah, as Larry mentioned, we've got surprisingly poor stand density in our 2 grain trials because of the excess water we received after planting, and then the dry spell that we had directly after that, where our fiber plantings did a much better job at trying to reach that stand count we're looking for. So this is my first year running this multi-state trial. I've definitely learned a lot from Luis and Larry and their experience in years past, and I'm very excited to have you all here to show this off. And if you have any questions, please let us know. But here soon enough, we're going to be bringing up some of the seed providers for these different seeds, and they can answer some specific questions you guys have about their varieties as well.
Thank you, perfect.
Can I ask one quick question? Do you have any plans when you start using the plot combine of sort of comparing our hand harvest versus a combine harvest?
So Bob is asking if we're going to make the extra effort to compare the 1 meter square plots that Luis did in that type of hand harvest to our full plot mechanical harvest. And we're really short on labor right now. I'm also harvesting hops at the same time, and it's just, we're crushed right now. So I understand.
Larry, one question?
Yeah.
Hey, both you and Bob kind of talked about using Sonolan as a pre-emergent. Are you guys gonna do any studies on using like a post-emergent? We started doing some stuff on Maestro 4EC as a post herbicide, and seems to be working, but I think more studies need to be done. So Maestro.
Okay. Yeah. So Corby's talking about adding new herbicide tools to the toolkit, and we have one of the country's experts here. And she's in a meeting right now, but she's going to join us at 2 o'clock, Lynn Sosnoskie. Okay. And so the way to get those herbicides onto the label for the most part is through the IR4 program. And Lynn is our representative to that national IR4 program. So you should definitely talk to her when you see her here in a few minutes.
And that's where she is right now.
And that's where she is right now. She's at the IR4 meeting right now, advocating for new pesticides and herbicides for hemp and for other specialty crops. Great question. So I'm going to again call out folks. Terry, you're on deck, and then Corby.
Yeah, just a quick highlight. I just want you guys to look at the handouts and look at the new breeding lines that we have. As you're going to be talking with seed providers, I would like for you guys to actually look at our new breeding lines that my lab mates and I have worked together and very hard to put them, and you will see them in the field. So if you have any questions, please, Lucia right here, Bahia right there, they can also answer questions regarding those breeding lines, 1052, 1053, 1335, and 1422. So yeah, just
stole my thunder, man. So we have 8 new cultivars in these trials, 3 dedicated fiber cultivars, and one of them has already had PVP issued, that's Alta, and then 5 new grain or dual purpose cultivars, and again one of those has had PVP issued, that's Grande. I want to announce that those 2 were licensed to International Hemp, and that license has been terminated. So we are currently licensing, signing evaluation licenses through our Center for Technology Licensing for seed companies to evaluate these new cultivars and decide if they want to sign a commercial license. So that's the point that we're at. Alta and Grande have a lot of data, as Luis showed you, backing them up. The 2 other fiber varieties, 231142 and 241380, have quite a bit of data nationwide, and the other grain varieties, we are just starting to collect data. They were planted in David Suchoff's trial at NC State, and we will look forward to scaling up enough seed so that we can get them all entered in the multi-state trial next year. So, Terry, stop writing and come up and talk about the varieties being distributed by Kanda Hemp Seed.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering if we have anything standing anywhere. We don't. No. So,
yeah.
So Kanda Hemp, we have 3 varieties here. What I saw was cut down already. Is there something standing? I don't know. But they're all down. I would expect them to be later than that. And it's a little surprising that they're not. In general, they're pretty full season varieties. You know, they are available commercially. You know, there's a lot of nice stuff here in the pipeline. But as far as the Kanda Hemp stuff goes, you know, there's scalable quantities right now. And our specialty, the whole company's emphasis is direct importing and distribution nationwide. And we're not talking just a few acres, you know, we're talking the majority of the acres out there for fiber. So it's pretty tough to look at them. You know, they're laying on the ground. you can expect, no real issues with compliance. Nationwide, there's a few states that are still, under a state program, and it costs a little bit more, so you have to do a second sampling or something like that. But I would say that nationwide, we have crops 0.8 to 0.9. They cut them down, they let them ret, and it is not an issue anymore. So that's on the compliance side. It's a big concern for people. I think the real concern is cost per acre and high quality seed in the bag. And I believe we've really improved our standards on that, and we'll continue to improve our standards and hold a high standard. That's my goal, is to have the highest quality seed in the bag nationwide, and stuff that works from South Texas, Central Florida, to the Vermont border. So all three of these varieties are available, like 100 metric tons right now, and not right now, but by February, March delivery. Cross your fingers on that smile. We all know how that goes. It's the way it is. Yeah, the market is basically a herd. There's not much going on in fiber, and these things are herd monsters. And we carry three of them because, the Geneva works a little better across the north. It will flower and make seed. Ideally, I'd sell nothing but Yuma. We just don't have that much seed of Yuma available. So that way we have to bring in these other varieties. And they're all very similar. They're all grown for fiber in China. So, if anybody wants to book seed,
Questions for Terry?
containers are waiting.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's clear you found a good cup of coffee this morning. So Corby, Mitef, and Robin.
2 for 1.
All right.
You're both
We're going to tag team and talk about the varieties from KonopiUS.
Thanks, Larry. My name's Reuben Destiche. I'm with KonopiUS. We are seed importers and distributors as well. Our primary partner is in France. Hemp, they're responsible for the Futura out here, which is probably our most common variety. We too, like Terry said, we're gearing up for next year, looking for ordering early. Really helps get those orders over here in time. So I'll pass it over to Corbin.
Thanks, Robin. Corby Mitef, KonopiUS, working with Robin. I guess we're going on our 5th year. I was planting Futura 83 and working with the French genetics. I guess kind of going on my 9th season now. Big shout out to Bob, S1084, and getting our variety all over America and free trials has really helped us out. It's nice working with state schools because it's get data back that it's third party. So really appreciate all they're doing, and with Larry, doing all this using F83 a lot, and with Lewis, Futura 83 is kind of what I call our workhorse. Kind of mentioned today, it's kind of the commercial sort of standard, to kind of base things off of. These genetics date back, commercially producing this since sort of the early 60s, late 50s. But the French genetics go back even further than that. It goes back to Napoleon, where we breed and multiply the seeds in France. There's canals all over the field there. Those canals were dug by Napoleon, his army. They just were using this. If they didn't have the hemp, they wouldn't have the naval fleet. So it was integral that there has a drought, that the hemp was always being watered. We realized that hemp really needs water to grow well. It's kind of a myth that it doesn't take a lot of water, but it really responds well to it. Hello, testing. Okay. Just real quick, one of the things that we really worked on and look at is sort of, you can see the Futura 83. It's just sort of long, slender stalks. Really sort of selective breeding for no branching. We find that's really important, especially when it goes to the decorticator. A lot of less trash that goes through that. But always developing new varieties. We found out the easy part is breeding hemp. We can breed new varieties quite easy. The big problem that we're having and what everybody's having is just increasing that seed yield, multiplication. It's getting everybody in the seed business. It's a tough situation to handle. But we really got kind of caught off guard this year. Wish I could sell more Futura 83. The problem is just getting enough seed available. The global demand now is just increasing every year. So not only we're selling the seed in Europe, but we're selling it through America, South America now, Africa. And so we're just trying to increase that seed and bring it about. And since we're here, like Jerry said and Robin, we got seeds. We got limited availability, so get your seed orders in early, and we'll get you the seed. So we have time for questions. Questions.
What was the herbicide timing on the application of Maestro?
Yeah, that Maestro application was at about early, probably like week 4, I believe. I think big thing you need to research is when you apply it and sort of what temperature. I think in the hotter temperatures in the sun, it reacts different than if it's in sort of cooler temperatures in the morning. But I really believe that sort of Maestro is kind of way forward with post-emergent. Sonolan's working really good as a pre-emergent, but we need a post-emergent, so I really want to sort of look into some other things. Yes?
What would be your favorite grain variety and favorite fiber variety that you would recommend to people, maybe in this particular area of the country?
Yeah, Andrew asked, what's my favorite fiber variety and what's favorite grain variety? Favorite fiber variety is Bichera 83. Third party, Lewis and Larry, what they're doing is we got a lot of bast on this. Something that they've been working on is kind of what in France they laugh at us, that we sort of base our industry off herd in America, and they kind of laugh. That's kind of the trash over there. Their big thing over there is first grain, that brings the highest price. Second price comes in at the bast fiber, and the lowest sort of product coming off these plants is the herd. Bichera 83 has a really good bast fiber. Can be used for textiles. A lot of it has to do with fiber quality after you cut it, how you ret it, and when you sort of pick it up. Has a big impact on the fiber variety. I think with my favorite grain variety is actually a dual crop. Orion 33 has been performing really good. It's kind of topped some of the charts in Bob's deal, but this plant's really finicky. Like some years you plant it and it works real good, and then you do the same exact thing the next year and it doesn't do good. And it's the same seed, it's the same genetics. It's just kind of a weird thing that we got to work out some of the kinks and really figure out the nitty gritty on how this plant works. And so still working on like a sort of just a grain only. I'm still looking for sort of a 24, sort of 36 inch, 3,000 pound sort of grain variety, kind of just gets above my knees. I'd really like to do.
That'd be great.
And so really trying to focus on that right now. It's kind of one of my priorities. But really I think, a dual crop, using the whole plant, cutting it for the fiber, for the grain, both fibers, herd and bast and grain, get the most bang for the buck per acre. Really excited now that, hemp's kind of taking part in more contracts, terrible what's happened to the soybean, but it's actually given hemp a little bit of a head start or sort of a fast forward, so appreciate that.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys.
And hey, Larry, just to confirm, this has never been irrigated, correct?
This was never irrigated. Yeah. Reuben Stone has been, and his wife Keenan have been long-standing friends of the program. Sent us our first seed. Sent us a huge 51,000 pounds of seed when Governor Cuomo wanted to be the top in the nation in planting hemp in 2017, right? So we really thank all of the help and advice and consultation that Reuben has offered, and he's going to talk about their varieties at Uniseeds.
Yeah, I got to thank Cuomo, I guess, for that order, because I know Larry's a much better planner than Cuomo was, because I'm pretty sure that call came May 20th, something like that, to get this seed down here. And I thought, who's this Larry guy? Call him another crazy American. Anyway, we're pretty close, actually. We're neighbors next door.
By July 15th. So.
Yeah, it all went in. Anyway, we're 5 hours directly straight north of here, and started growing hemp in 2009. We got into seed genetics the next year, 2010. We started our own breeding program in 2011. And Anka is our main variety, first variety registered to certified seed in North America back in 1998, and it's still our mainstay variety across Canada and down here as well too. Uniseeds, we sell seed into France, Europe, Austria, 3 varieties registered now in Europe and around the world too. So hemp's the fun crop that gets us out of the farm. We got into hemp because it's what kept me on the family farm as a new crop, and we're been working hard to try to grow the industry. Keenan's vice chair of the CHTA. I'm vice chair of the Canadian PRA, which is our Canadian crop checkoff that's starting this year. So that's a first in Canada where farmers are actually mandatorily contributing to a crop checkoff now to grow and market the industry in Canada and around the world. So that's a new start for Canada. But yeah, so we've Uniseeds, we've been producing and selling seed across the states. We do produce seed domestically in the United States as well too, of Anka and Vega, and so those products are available produced in the USA or produced very close by, just a few hours north, and we focus on ease of harvest for the farmer. That was my first introduction to KonopiUS genetics back in 2009. Working at that level, running the combine, that was the most noticeable thing. The first year I grew hemp was the ease of harvest of a KonopiUS line over a Destiche. So that's a major priority for us, along with the grain and fiber quality. And our parentage does go back to European genetics, Romanian, some Polish stuff. So you do see it align more with the European genetics. We saw that in the data earlier. Yeah, so there's a team of 4 of us. So Mark Lottie is our sales lead out of Ontario. So he typically carries the relationships across North America. He also teaches agribusiness at University of Guelph. And then our plant breeder, Annie, who we meet at the conferences. She works out of Montreal and also does some brassica and work with potatoes and other crops too, and working on our hemp breeding program. So looking forward to seeing more of the Verve varieties coming north, and some more of our stuff maybe coming south. And have anything to say, Keith?
Any questions? Yeah.
Are you guys selling directly into the States, or do you sell through distributors or dealers or anything like that?
So we do both. We do have a distributor out in the Midwest with Horizon Hemp, and then we will sell direct into the East particularly, and mostly that's logistical for cost things, because Horizon is one of the domestic producers for growing seed here in the U.S., so it's more economical in that way.
Yeah. It is still a bit of a pain getting seed across the border, right? So, both directions. So having a single recipient and then distribution after that makes things a lot easier, right? So, thank you. Yeah, Eric.
Border trouble, is that because of politics or because of THC fear?
It's not so much THC fear, but just that in Canada the regulations require import and export permits still for industrial hemp seed, and it's still kind of a long process. They're getting better, but between 15 and 30 days for issuing a permit. So, and then depending on the variety, like if it's on our Canadian list of approved cultivars, it's easier. If it's something that's not, especially if it's something that we're bringing the other direction, there's a whole lot more paperwork involved, and CFIA gets involved with import permits and phytosanitary requirements and things like that. So.
We've worked hard at stable, less than 0.3% THC as well too, and so we've reaped the rewards of that in Canada, where we don't have to do in-field testing on commercial crops anymore for THC levels, because it's certified pedigree seed. And as the breeding and the seed production companies, we guarantee that it's basically never going above 0.3. So that's been a major benefit to the Canadian system, where that burden is on us as seed providers to maintain less than 0.3. And we're extremely confident that we're never going to go above that. So
one more quick one. I just wonder if you could talk for a minute or two about the Canadian market for grain and fiber this year.
well, grains carried the ball in Canada all the way since 1998, and there's been several fiber starts and attempts, and some success and some challenges. And Canada, we're a grain food producing nation, right? We know how to do that. We're really good at protein and oil. Fiber, we don't have any domestic fiber industry going back 100 years. So that's certainly a challenge that everyone's learning from new, and I think it's pretty common here too. So.
Can I ask a quick question? I'll be quick. What do you do with your stalks?
Well, on my farm, we grow 300 acres. The focus is the pedigree seed. The stock is completely secondary. It does all get baled up, and we do some basic processing of it. But it's not, there's no emphasis put on the fiber quality at our place. It's all about the seed quality, right? Now, our genetics, they do go into the fiber production scenario, right? So you see the latitude effect here, certainly versus Alberta, BC, Saskatchewan, where Anka is grown exclusively for fiber in those areas, right, with the different latitudes. So that's all about the stock.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Okay, thanks again. We've been blessed in the past to have Jeff Kostyuk from Hemp Genetics International and then Verve Seed join us many times. He's another great friend of the program. And then Jayme Hunter has joined a little more recently. So Jayme, if you want to talk about Verve and your breeding program there.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Bob, for all the work you're doing. Yeah, the border thing is always a struggle, and getting seed to Bob on time is the bane of my existence, but we're getting there slowly. Hopefully it gets better. So yeah, Verve Seeds. We were founded in 2021 from two separate companies. HGI was kind of the original company. HGI started breeding in probably the early 2000s. Again, a lot of the materials starting with Northern European varieties. Our focus has been dioecious breeding, and it's been latitudinal adaptation for Canada. So we're north of the 49th, and a big thing we've gone after is having varieties that are short, that go through the combine, that aren't branchy. That said, that was such a focus of the program. Some might think I should be embarrassed standing in front of my varieties down here because they don't look very good, but it's a data point. So yeah, that's part of the thing. So the program was originally focused on dioecious open pollinated varieties for grain. Recently, we've really been working on developing inbred lines and producing hybrids for grain. So we're testing, I think, 28 new hybrids in the field in Canada this year. We've got some down to the States for testing. We've been really happy with the results there. So like I said, we feel like that is probably the path forward for hemp grain anyways. I don't know if it always works on the fiber aspect of things because, as Larry alluded to, the cost of development of these programs is significant. So yeah, that's, I can keep it short, and yeah, any questions?
You said down here, so about how far south do you typically sell seed into where you have?
Yeah, so we've developed some new varieties that are more adapted to further socio-Jurassic. There's a fiber variety we've developed that performs quite well here, but for our core of our program, which is CRS1, CFX2, tanning, I would not recommend that they're grown, kind of below 46 degrees latitude. Montana, they do pretty well. Down here, they just really don't. Indigo is another variety. It's a funny one. Here it's short, but in Pennsylvania, I've seen it this tall. It's very different pedigree. We brought germplasm in not only from Europe, but we ingress traits from the cannabis world almost as well, in the high CBD world. So we're seeing some different things that we don't really know how to explain yet on the photoperiod sensitivity. And what Cornell's doing is helping to explain that with autoflowering markers, etc. So, yeah, we try to market our varieties by a latitudinal adaptation zone. So that's just great.
Thanks a lot, Jayme. And last, I just want to allow Sarah Mitchell to introduce herself and King's AgriSeed. And Sarah runs her own trials in Pennsylvania, which have been very impressive. So I'll just let you provide an overview of your company.
So King's AgriSeeds,
Tim Fritz actually in 2019 found himself on the cover of Lancaster Farming, standing next to a hemp trial at Penn State Research Farm, and people called him and said, "Are you carrying hemp seed?" And that's truthfully how we got into the hemp seed business. So King's AgriSeeds actually looks a lot, is very in tune with the market, looks at customer demand, and is also looking for new revenue streams for our farmers. It's very important for King's to match the varieties with the end user so that the varieties that I sell actually have a home. In the middle of that, of course, is can the variety be produced in our area? And our area, well, I've sold seed from coast to coast, border to border, Alaska and Hawaii, and I can tell you firsthand that Louisiana is not a good place, and I will never sell seed there again because our varieties that we carry, but they begged me, honest to God, they said they begged me, please sir, you're the only game in town, and you're such a nice person. So they want to give me money, I will take it. So at any rate, we do hold some very nice, really quite nice variety trials in order to bring people together. At our field days, we've had end users such as grain processors, fiber companies, bioplastics people come and take a look at our varieties that we have on hand and go, yes, yes, no, 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 yes, maybe. At the same time, the breeder is there, and I can put those two together and bring a farmer over and say, what are your challenges, farmer? Well, that's way too big. I can never do it. I'm not spending that kind of money for new equipment. So for us, this is about trying to keep the family farm with a new revenue stream. Soil health is also paramount for King's AgriSeeds, and hemp is a forb, something that is not very common in the agronomic crop cycle. So in addition to finding out the beginning and the end, where does this crop fit in the farming calendar? Where can we fit it so that all the other crops continue to produce well? I myself have grown 48 varieties of hemp in 6 years, 32 of which have been grain and fiber varieties. I've grown experimental varieties for screening purposes. I'm really humbled by that, very, very humbled by that I would be able to grow out test varieties for Verve, for Cornell, for US genetics. So I can also say that hybrids are the way of the future, just like nobody would think about planting an open pollinated corn plant. So definitely hybrids are the way of the future, and we can't get there fast enough for the reliability that they bring for the processor as well as the farmer. So if you want a good seed supplier who's had gone through a school of hard knocks and is solvent, that would be King's AgriSeeds.
And also a very nice person. So I just want to highlight, we talked about our new cultivars, and there's a nice description that Luis wrote up about them in the handouts. 2 of those are 0 THC lines. They're chemotype 4, high CBG, and in my opinion, you know, we spent the whole morning talking about hemp seed meal for animal feed. No one brought up the definition of hemp seed meal, which has to have less than 2 parts per million THC and less than 20 parts per million CBD. And I think that will be challenging to meet with many of today's cultivars that are chemotype 3, or especially those that also have chemotype 2 plants in them. But we have developed chemotype 4 plants that produce 0 THC. So 25 1335 and 25 1422. So take a look at those. I think that will be the future of grain production for animal feed, in my opinion. Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce Lynn Sosnoskie, who is an assistant professor in horticulture, one of my colleagues, and our weed science specialist. And Lynn is going to talk about and answer whatever questions you have about herbicides, which are a lot.
Hi, thanks all for coming and thanks for having me. First off, I hear I'm going to get a question about maestro, bromoxynil, and I don't want to be that person, but as far as I can see through the IR4 project, which I just got off of, that is a manufacturer will not support. So right now, as far as herbicides go, we have one. I don't know how many of you are using Sonalan, but that is our product. Sonalan, the active ingredient, is ethafluralin. Ethafluralin is a group 3 herbicide. It's primarily effective against grass species, but it can suppress some small-seeded annual broadleaves. This product can be applied either pre-emergence or pre-plant incorporated. So we either apply it to the soil after we've planted the hemp and we need a rainfall or an irrigation event to get it incorporated, or else we're going to apply it ahead of planting and then we're going to physically incorporate it into the soil. Now we are still going to need moisture to get that herbicide activated because it needs to be in the soil solution to be taken up by the weeds that are germinating where it can be effective. Now, under dry conditions, we did a study last year, a very large study where we put half the field out pre-plant incorporated and the other half out pre-emergence. We found that we had the same level of hemp safety and we had longer lasting weed control with the pre-plant incorporated, and really with other herbicides that we use in this same strategy, we find that the pre-plant incorporated under dry conditions can provide us a little bit better control. We saw really not a lot of change with the small-seeded broadleaves, but with our grasses, we greatly increased our grass control. So we need to make sure that we get the pre-plant incorporated, the pre-emergence, Sonalan on. We need it activated again through a rainfall or irrigation event. And it's really going to be important that we get it activated and that we're using really vigorous hemp seed because we don't have any post-emergence herbicides available for weed control. And I'm going to tell you, I'm the negative person. I'm not sure that we are going to be getting those herbicides for weed control, either pre or post-emergence. First and foremost, I've done a lot of work, and you can get our poster. It is online in your handouts. My colleague Terry Basisone and I have done a lot of work. Hemp is sensitive to a lot of herbicides, both pre-emergence and post-emergence applied. So we have a lot of sensitivity in the crop. That means we're going to have to take the herbicide that we have and as vigorous a crop as we can get established and get it going so it can naturally suppress the weeds itself. That means you're going to be relying on the information that Larry and other groups generate as far as the nutritional needs of hemp for a vigorous crop, for your planting, your seed selection, all of that. We're really going to have to be thinking about crop vigor as the #1 strategy for managing weeds outside of this single herbicide application that we do have. I'd also like to bring up, depending on your planting time, we need to be thinking about other strategies for integrated weed management, either a stale seed bed technique where we let some of those early emerging weeds get up, go in and kill them, and then go in and plant our hemp. I do want to have one comment about rotations and herbicide rotations. Having a very effective herbicide program in the crops that precede hemp can be very valuable, but you have to understand the products that you use in those crops that precede hemp, they come with rotation restrictions. And that it can be up to 18 months for crops not listed on the label, and frankly, hemp is not listed on many labels when it comes to rotational. Now, a lot of that, the rotation restrictions are set for the EPA because of residue, but we still don't have a lot of information about hemp sensitivity to herbicides in preceding crops. So sometimes that can also come down to potential crop damage. One thing I do want to mention while we're standing here, and we've got the combine back there, is combine clean out. And this is for any grain crop that you're growing. And I know some of you are going to say, Lynn, do you know how hard it is to clean a combine out? And yeah, I do. It is hard, but I want to let you know that we really have to be focused on combine clean out. We have to be focused on the weed seeds that we are moving from field to field, especially because we have Palmer amaranth in New York State now. We have water hemp in New York State. These are two pigweed species. They are exceptionally competitive with our crops. They are spreading. You do not want to have one of these weeds get established, you know, in the fields that you're going to want to be planting two crops where we have very few options of weed control. So if you know that you're going to be in areas, in fields where we are going to be encountering some of these more competitive weed species, we do recommend combine clean out prior to entering fields. We do recommend a combine clean out at the end of the season. I tell the soybean growers this, I tell the corn growers this, I tell the wheat growers this, I tell all the growers, we have to be thinking seriously about how we are moving our most serious weed issues around. And really, first and foremost, it's us as growers and harvesters. So please don't forget that component of weed management. Any other questions? Any questions? Yes.
Regarding pigweed, so I've seen hemp growing in over 30 states, and all those 30 states I see a species of pigweed. So it's everywhere.
Yes.
So now the thing that we've been spraying off label is Maestro 40C. Are you thinking about doing any research on Maestro? Because I think there's a way to spray it that works, but...
So I have done, and it... so his question was about pigweeds. Problems, and my guess that I'm hoping it's not Palmer amaranth, but it could be Palmer amaranth. That is one of our biggest problems throughout the United States. I have done work looking at Maestro, looking at the safety, and yes, it is one of the safer herbicides. This is, again, as far as a registration, a formal registration, the last time I checked, I do believe it was the manufacturer will not support this. They are not pursuing a label for hemp. I can go back in and check the database, but right now, a lot of the products that have been evaluated, we are on two ends of the spectrum. It's either I'm going to kill hemp, or this is safe, and I'm going to say Stinger, Spur, and Maestro have been those that have shown measures of safety. Right now, we don't have a registrant path forward for the product.
So there's in Canada doing minor use, which is in the
I just came from that workshop, and there was not we did not make it through.
Hardware, which is also the monster, is on label for minor use. And there's a bit of a precedence.
There is a precedence, and I literally just got off of the IR4 call. Okay, this was about minor use products in Canada. I literally 15 minutes ago got off final priority setting from the IR4, which is our minor use. This product did not even make the nomination process because the manufacturer has already said it will not support it. So we don't have a legal path forward.
So what is your recommendation for somebody that is no-till?
Yeah, so this is going to be a problem. We don't have a very good recommendation for no-till. You can use the ethylfluralin pre-emergence. You're going to need it incorporated. My thought then is if, using a stale seedbed technique, if you can, depending on your planting date, have the flush of weeds get up, have them burn down. With an effective burn down product, get in, use a vigorous seed lot at the appropriate planting density to give you your strongest stand along with that ethylfluralin pre.
Hey Lynn?
Yes, ma'am.
So Larry showed this photo that your lab put together that had like one cultivar, I think he said it was 8 acres or something, and like some of it appeared to be about yay high, and then in the driveway it was about yay high. So what's up with that, Lynn?
Yeah, so I would love to tell you that this is a herbicide problem, but I don't think it is. I cannot find, this is a handout, this is the field. I cannot find any characteristic or diagnostic herbicide damage for the products that were used previously. To be honest, where the hemp is growing best is where I thought the product was going to have the most damage. Because it's an HPPD inhibitor, I found hemp to be very sensitive to HPPD inhibitors. It's growing the best in that field. I do think that we have issues with organic matter, soil compaction, fertility, and then just the dry, hot, dry conditions that we have been under that are interacting to cause some of the issues that we're seeing in this field. And Larry can talk about that more. But can we strictly say that this isn't absolutely a herbicide? No. In fact, this field here, the last herbicide it saw was in 2021. So I promise you, the product is not around still.
One last question. So how close are we to having a viable non-herbicide-based weed management system for fiber and grain hemp? What would be the ideal spacing for that system, perhaps? What do you think about that?
Okay, so mind you, I work with specialty crops, so I'm your beet and your carrot and your cabbage person. I am not a grain and fiber person. I sometimes fill in. If you're growing this more like wheat, and you know, with the advantage of the small grains, we're going over the winter where we have a very different weed spectrum, and when we have a lot of these very competitive you know, summer annuals coming up, we've already got our small grains are very tall, they're already filled in. This is not something I have investigated. I'm not the person to answer it. I feel I need to defer to someone else. Now, okay, well, I have not worked with the flame weeding. I have worked with electric weeding, but not in a crop like hemp. I will say that we did run we had carbon robotics here last year, and we did run the laser weeder over the hemp to help facilitate developing a crop model for their laser weeder. The only issue that would probably come with that is carbon robotics price tag, which is about $600,000 for their smallest unit and 1.6 for their largest.
Great. Thanks very much, Lynn. She is at the cutting edge of those technologies for specialty crops, so thanks very much, Lynn. I wanted to call up Reuben again, just to comment a little bit on the combine system that we just acquired and what his sort of, you know, thumbnail experience is in combining wheat.
Yeah, wheat's a much different animal. I harvested our first hemp crop in 2009, kind of going in blind. We started with a 7720 and 8820 combine, which is the ancestor combine to this one, the 9510 generation prior. So pretty similar what I started with. In general, you get away much better with walker combine. So this is a conventional cylinder, wide body walker. So you'll notice the feeder in the front underneath the cab is much wider than rotary combines. Modern day, that feeder's potentially even wider than the biggest, newest one, rotaries now, right? So, and it's a much lower capacity combine. But starting from the head, sharp, new guards and knives. This stuff is tough, it's fiber for a reason, and dead male plants love to jam up knife guards, and your wobble boxes on the end will get taken out if you don't have good, nearly new knives and guards. The advantage is with hemp, most of the time they're not down in the dirt, so they do last a long time, but they got to be good condition to start with. I've had much better luck with draper heads than with auger heads. Typically, more typical hemp, you're up into something like that's Fedora 17, I think, down here. I think that's a little more typical situation that you'd be up nice and high like that, and you're taking a 2-3 foot deep cut off the top of the hemp. So I like to have the hemp right in the middle drum of the reel when you're cutting into it, and pretty good ground speed, because it's the inertia of the plant that really drops it in. So similar to the multi-cut systems where it's the inertia of the plant that carries it through the knives, that's also your friend with hemp. So don't get a head that's too wide. You're better off with a smaller head, a 20-25 foot head, and keeping your ground speed up, and it'll flow a lot nicer into the head. But you got to be paying attention, because you got to be on the brakes if things start to go sideways. Once you're into the combine, I like to say set it up for a tight soybean crop. So you're look at your soybean setting range and be on the tight end of that spectrum. And then your grain cleaning, set it up for oats. And that's a good start from there. Hemp's almost always wet in the field. It's a low bushel weight, and there's a lot of chaff in it. So it's a very difficult crop to clean in the combine. So you're gonna have dirt in the tank. The newer combines with grain pans instead of augers. So this one collects the grain with a series of small 4-inch augers across the width. That has a harder time with a crop like hemp. It's great for corn and soybeans, but it'll keep the hemp stirred up in the chaff. The grain and chaff don't get separated, so a bumper pan in most of the new combines now, it's all shaker tables in the bottom that'll help stratify that, and you'll get a cleaner sample faster because the cleaning system can work better. So that's an advantage with the newer ones. And then good fresh cross augers, your clean grain auger. If you're doing a lot of acres, you can get cake building up, damaged seed in the clean grain auger that goes into the tank. If it's worn out, you get a lot of damaged seed in there, and it'll start to build up some peanut butter-like stuff, and then it's a snowball effect, and you make a mess in a hurry. That's not great for your grain quality. So, and at the rear end, most of the time, there's a few growers I know that will chop their straw. That is certainly the exception. Almost all the hemp that I know of, the straw is all dropped out the back, so the chopper removed. You see this one, it's slid forward. That's so that the straw can just come out with no resistance at the rear end, and then you'll have to deal with that later to clean up your residue in the field. I cover it, Larry? Good.
Questions for Reuben? Tyler.
Moisture content in the grain. So for grain crops in the east, let's use eastern North America, I guess you're probably going to be, in a best case scenario, in the high teens. You're probably going to be into the 20s. So you're looking at removing upwards of 10, 12, 15% moisture. I've harvested it as high as 30. That's excessive. But usually we're in the low 20s. And you have, on a nice sunny day like this, that grain temperature is already 30 plus degrees Celsius, sorry, in Canadian. It's probably 80, 90 Fahrenheit sitting out there in the sunlight. It'll start to heat in the combine tank, and you've got hours. If you're maintaining a food quality or a pedigree seed quality seed, you've got to really maintain that crop. So get it out, get it on air, get it dried down. Something Keenan remind me of, these older John Deeres, they like feeder house belts. So it's a roller chain with slat bars in the feeder out front. That's fine here. This isn't a lot of acres. If you're into the hundreds of acres, you're going to want to take those out and replace them with a set of chains that are carrying a full width belt, and that keeps any material out of the upper drive shaft up closest to the threshing cylinder. That's where it loves to build and wrap on there. You can get that, and that's not exclusive to hemp, especially in the 8820 series generation. That was a bigger problem because they hadn't even addressed it at all. You get peas and wheat and rye, they'd all wrap up in the feeders there. So these ones are a little bit better. But if you've got a lot of acres to get through, you don't want to be thinking about that on a daily basis. So get it swapped out with a bill. Typically, it's all on the ground at that point, so I try not to wait. Yeah, right now is go time for sure. Don't wait. Get it. Take control and dry it yourself.
Unless you're a bird lover.
You want them to pay.
You want to introduce what you're going to do, Jacob?
So we've got definitely not some new equipment, but it's new to us, which is really exciting. So that allows us to continue furthering our research. You know, we just came from the small plot trials, and here's where we can validate that data by going up into a larger scale trial and confirming some of that yield numbers. So the equipment we're going to be running today is a John Deere 9510 with a MacDod 960 draper header. I'm going to be taking it through this rack right here. I'm going to take a pass up and a pass back down. I should harvest the whole field in just those 2 passes. While I'm doing that, please do not be standing in the field or in front of me as I'm coming out, because I would like us to all be able to go home at the end of the day today. So before I hop in the combine, does anyone have any questions for me? All right, let's rock and roll. So that harvest went really successfully for me. You know, Eric asked me how I thought it was going to go. I said it was going to go really well, which really could have screwed me over. You will notice I always come prepared. I got pliers, I've got knives. You have to when you're going out into the hemp field like this, because you never know what you're going to expect. We did get really lucky with what we were able to purchase. This older equipment works out really well for what we're trying to do. You know, I've got a lot of people to thank for that. Reuben Stone was a very reliable resource for me. Jayme, you'll have to thank Jeff for me. He helped me a lot, as well as my brother and my dad. They gave me a lot of advice to make sure we got the right equipment to do this job here today.
So what's the next step, Jacob, with that grain?
Yeah, so like Reuben said, you really got to get this out of here fast. If you all weren't here today, I'd be driving back over there to dump all this grain out so I could stick a fan in it and start drying it out. So it will sit here in the combine here for a few hours, and I'll get that taken care of this evening. But yeah, it's really wet in there. There's a lot of weed seeds. There's very high moisture content, so that's just going to get warmer and start cooking and degrading the seed. So it's really important that we get that out of here and starting to dry as soon as we can.
Secondary grain cleaning would be handy.
Once the seed is cool and dry, we can always go through additional grain cleaning from there to help clean up that purity, which is going to really help us out. And as Larry was talking about, the middle driveway has thicker hemp in it, and it also has thicker weeds in it. So I was trying to run through this field at about 3 miles an hour, And the first time I ran through that patch, I could hear the whole combine slug down because I was taking in material. So when I came back around, I ran 1 mile an hour through that heavier patch just so the combine could handle that extra load that was being put on it. So it's all about knowing your machinery, knowing your crop conditions, and making those adjustments on the fly.
Can you see how much chaff is going in at the time that you're driving, and then can adjust your whatever air or speed or belt speed or whatever you have? Can you see that as you go?
So yeah, I've got a window back here, so I can actively see the pile of grain forming and the seed pouring out. Now I will admit, I am not a skilled combine operator yet, so I can make those adjustments on the fly, but it'll take more time in the seat for me to actually understand what adjustments affect the grain quality and how I can best know those to get the best harvest we can.
I've got a field in Pennsylvania that you could practice on, so you just drive it on down.
Oh, absolutely, I'll do that. Oh, between you and Bob Pearce, you just keep volunteering me for more work this season.
And a vacation, you know.
Oh. Any other questions while I got you all around here?
Why don't you ask us questions? Wait, never mind.
Where's the grain like stored inside this machine?
So the grain is in the grain cab up here. So I've got a big open area right here that's holding all of this grain. So this long auger tube here is going to swing out, and then all of the grain is going to pour out of it when I tell it I want to dump it.
I see. All right.
So if that's all, we'll now go over to the next demonstration. As Larry said, we'll drive out this way, we'll turn left, and you can see that edge effect and that higher growth in that row. But we'll end up meeting at this field over here that's already been cut and redded, and I'm going to show you a baling demonstration of how we wrap that fiber into a bale so we can store it and then process it.
Again, our emphasis this year was on grain production, so we did not grow that much for fiber, and we didn't have really any seed of Ursa alta that we could spare. That's a story for another time. But we did grow some Futura 83 here in this field and in another field across the road, and I'm going to let Jacob talk about how he harvested it and what he's going to demonstrate. But before I pass it off to Jacob, I really should probably bring up Andrew, if Andrew wants to talk about the fiber cut, the Bish fiber cut harvester. And then Jacob can talk about how well it ran or didn't.
I'm sure it ran well. Okay, I'm Andrew Bish with Bish Enterprises. Right back over here, we have one of our 4-tier fiber cut machines. That uses basic sickle technology. We drive it hydraulically. That allows for a little lower horsepower needs in the field. One of the unique things about our machine is the versatility and the configurability. So you can see that there's a lot of holes in the side of the machine. And we've done that on purpose so that you can move blades forwards or backwards depending on the speed of your available travel speed in the field. As well as move those blades up or down, so if you want a longer or shorter stock. So depending on what your needs are, that allows you to configure that. It hooks up to a standard tractor, so it's PTO driven. You can drive any of the blades independently, so you can run 1 blade, 2 blades, 3 blades, 4 blades, however many you want. You can swing them independently, you can swing them all at the same time if you want to. The machine is very robust. Ultimately, we offer this in multiple different farm lengths depending on how much you want to cut. We come from large acreage country, so the larger the better. We offer this in an 8-foot, a 10-foot, a 12-foot, and a 14-foot farm. That makes it the largest multi-tier sickle mower in the world that we're aware of. One of the reasons that we designed the machine is to make it easier to rake and bale your crop, as well as decrease the amount of drying time necessary and increase the speed of redding. So all of those things are possible when you cut that into shorter lengths. What that allows you to do from an on-farm perspective is use traditional hay equipment. So if you're a hay operator and you've got a rake and you've got a baler, you can use that machine with it. It's not going to take a special machine, a special baler. You're not going to have to buy a forage baler. You're not going to have a much larger rake. You can often get away with what you have with that. The other unique thing about that machine, because of the way that we can configure that, if you have a very tall crop, we offer a tall wall extension so that you can get into the 15-foot range if you're trying to cut very, very tall crops and still maintain a shorter stock length. We've had that machine on the market about 4 years. We sell them. We have machines that we're ready to deliver this year, and we're going to be running our first 14-foot cutting arm machine this year within about 2 weeks. This is our first year we've offered that 14-foot. But that does make our cut width about 30% wider than any competing cutters out there. So that's a little bit about our machine. Did I miss anything?
What size horsepower? What size?
So you can actually run that machine off of an 85 horsepower tractor. I wouldn't do it though because it's a little bit heavy for the tractor. So we really recommend that you have a 125 to 150 horsepower tractor just for the stability. But you only need about 85 horsepower to actually run the machine itself.
How big of a solid stem can you run through? Like a 2-inch solid stem?
Yeah, so you can run up to a 2 1/4. Those guards are open 2 1/4 inches. That's going to be maximum diameter that you're going to be able to run through that particular machine. If you had a larger stock, we could put a custom sickle on there. We've got sickle guard options up to 3 1/2 inches, so you could do that. That's just very woody. It does get to be difficult in other regards, but we could go to a bigger stock size if necessary.
How fast have you driven it?
So that machine's designed to run pretty fast. We recommend a minimum ground speed in this configuration of 6 miles an hour, but typically I run 12 miles an hour. I'm always looking for how can I get home before it gets dark. So 12 miles an hour is typically where I run, and the machine runs pretty well. If you're in pivot track country, you got to slow down though, because it's a heavy machine. You hit those big holes in the ground and you're going to notice that. So you got to be mindful of your ground conditions. But that's a good question, Larry. How fast can you run the machine? Well, great. Thank you. All of this hemp around here was cut with that machine. I think, who am I turning this over to? Jacob, you're going to talk about baling?
And some other general equipment around this. Yeah, so thank you for that, Andrew. So, like Larry said, this is a Futura 83 field. I harvested this just under a month ago on August 14th. So it's been redding since then. And I've raked it a few times to get it into the windrows you see today. The fiber cut ran really well for me this year. I harvested this field and one additional field with it. Like Larry said, we don't have a lot of fiber fields this year compared to what we did last year. I definitely did a lot more cutting last year. The only issue I had with the fiber cut this year was when I cracked the hydraulic reservoir trying to tighten up a fitting. So I had to overnight apart, be able to replace that, and then I was able to get back into the field the next day. So that was really exciting. Additionally, the equipment I used a Field Master rake, which is a standard piece of haying equipment we had here at the farm already. I was able to put that into these windrows, and now I'm going to take this McHale baler through here. This is another standard piece of farming equipment that typical hay producers will have. This particular model does have some hemp modifications that were made by the manufacturer to make it easier for picking up hemp stock specifically. So that's helped me out a lot in our applications. Going back to that QR code handout, we do have some equipment write-ups so you can get a brief description of all the different pieces of equipment we've used on the fields, from the combine to the header to the fiber cut to this baler, and really understand what these different stages are and why they're important in the harvesting and processing of this. So I'll see if anyone has any questions. Other than that, I will make 2 to 3 bales real quick and answer any questions you have after that.
I was just saying, we were talking about disease resistance, and there's a tree down here that died of fire blight. And one of the things that we try, especially in hemp, very hard to do is to breed for yield and the horticultural marketable traits, but also breed for disease resistance at the same time. And I'm a plant pathologist, so I felt like I had to give that plug.
Okay, is everyone here? George, are we good to go? Thumbs up? Yeah, okay. So, I did not prepare a fact sheet for this trial because most of the data will be collected at the time of harvest. But just to explain, this is about a 4.5 acre field of Ursa Grande. It was an apple orchard. So just to consider, you know, look at how we manage around these apple trees. We tend to use a lot of herbicides in patches. So going into a field that was in orchard, in my experience, can be challenging. You often will see, you know, patches of underperformance where the herbicide residues are. But this field, we do need to fly a drone flight over it, but overall it looks pretty good from this side. And it did early on as well. So this is Ursa Grande, the seed we produced in Pennsylvania last year with a grower down there for seed production. We got a lot of help from Sarah Mitchell to produce that seed. That was in cooperation with International Hemp when they had the license to Grande. Unfortunately, after that harvest, it was, I think it was dried okay, but it was certainly not cleaned. And it was then not properly stored. So it really highlighted the importance of proper drying, cleaning, and storage, because we ended up with, I think, 5,500 pounds of seed at 31% germ, 37% germ. So it did not meet the standard for certified seed. Cannot be used any further for pedigreed seed production. So it brought that whole seed multiplication project basically to a halt. It's extremely frustrating for me, I'll just say. But it gives us 5,000 pounds of seed to do a lot of trials that don't require certified seed. And this is the one of them. This is a start. So my real curiosity is, what is the optimal planting date for Ursa Grande as a dual purpose crop? My presumption is that you want to plant it as early as possible and somehow find a double cut or some other way to combine plants that are 12 to 14 feet tall, because that's typically how high it will grow. So the first planting date is June 11th here, that Jayme is standing in front of. So June 11th, that's what we get from Ursa Grande. Again, it was very dry in July, so I think all of our crops underperformed in terms of height and biomass because of we've gotten about 50% of our normal rainfall here. But we planted, I think, 85 pounds to the acre, so double what we normally would, and I think we're going to end up with a pretty good stand. Again, just looking from the outside, we'll take that stand count at the time of harvest. Okay, where the speaker is, you see a little patch of sunflower in here when you walk down there, and we're going to end up walking all the way down, but obviously in the seed drill there was a little bit of sunflower seed left, and the first 6 feet are planted to sunflower. So that gives us, but that's in the seed drill, that's not in the combine. But that gave us a nice marker for the start of planting number 2. Can you tell the difference? So that was planted June 30th. Pretty impressive height, again, for June 30th, considering the lack of rain that we got in July. And I'm just, again, I don't have hard numbers. I don't have data to show you, unfortunately. I just have anecdotes. And the final third of the field was planted July 18th. I think we got 0.4 inches the day after we planted, or within the week of after planting. So some of it germinated, and then we didn't get rain for about 10 days. And then the rest of it germinated after we got a little bit of rain. And then it didn't rain for another 2 weeks. And my anecdotal comment is that those seedlings sat there about 3 inches tall in the dry, hot weather for a good 2 to 3 weeks. And then we got a couple of nice flushes of rain, you know, 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch of rain. And you can see what we've ended up with down there, which is a crop right now that's about 4 to 5 feet tall. And we'll see what the grain yield is. But this is what I wanted to test, was what happens when we plant on July 18th. That is well time enough to plant after the harvest of winter wheat here in New York. Can we get a decent grain yield that's relatively easy to harvest because it's only 4 to 5 feet tall? And will that crop then be a very good fit into our crop rotation here in upstate New York after winter wheat? It's going to make grain. So that's all I can say until we have more information. But I would say this is a type of research I want, now that we have good stable cultivars, this is the type of research I think we now need to do, is see how does Alta fit into our crop rotation. I'm talking about taking up 130 days of soil, right? And planting very early to harvesting pretty late. So how are we going to get a cover crop established after we've let it rot for another 30 days and then baling? I think that's a key question. How do we get cover crops established after these very late flowering fiber varieties? And how is that going to fit in our farmers' rotations? Again, can we plant a grain crop after wheat? Can we effectively grow a dual purpose crop that takes 120 days and requires some funky engineering? That's all I'll call it. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Please walk down to where Bob is, and that's about the start of the third planting. And we are here to demonstrate the FiberTrack 660 system that we bought a couple of years ago. It has been, there's been a fair amount of pain and suffering associated with this. The idea for us was to have, again, pilot scale, pre-commercial scale processing that we could demonstrate for New York companies and attract companies to come to New York and set up real commercial scale processing. We are close to that with Hempitecture. Hempitecture won a NYSERDA grant award to develop a blown-in cellulose insulation product here in New York, because it's New York State money. And they also were a prize winner in the Grow New York competition and got $500,000 again to locate a facility here in New York. So we are working. Tommy Gibbons, is Tommy still here? I think he had to take off. Tommy Gibbons and Maddie Mead of Hempitecture will be here next week when we have a hemp building workshop. And we are working intently with them to try to figure out, can we use this equipment, again, to develop pilot amounts of material, to develop the new products and develop a production line here in New York State. So it's somewhat fulfilling the needs, but the first pain point that we hit was when I showed all this equipment to the Cornell Code Enforcement Office. They said hemp dust is a flammable material. You're going to need a building with a certain code and certain, facilities, explosion-proof wiring, sprinkler system, backup power, all of this. It's going to cost you X millions of dollars to retrofit one of our existing buildings. And by the way, we don't have that space on our campus. So the solution was, okay, what if we put it on a trailer? And we sort of pitched it as it could be a mobile decorticator. A lot of people talked about that. I think some people tried to build that. So Formation Ag took that challenge and mounted, this is basically a herd focused line, yields us dirty fiber and herd, and mounted it on a trailer for us. And then we said, okay, well, we need to run it in, it'd be nice to be able to run it when it's raining or snowing. Can we build a fabric barn and run it inside there? Nope. You can keep it inside the fabric barn, but in order to run it, you have to pull it outside. So this was the design that was compatible with our Cornell Code Enforcement Office. Protect the machinery indoors, but we can only run it on days like this, and unfortunately we don't have 300 days like this like they have in Colorado. So we have not been able to run more than
about 5,000 pounds.
45,000 pounds. How many pounds did we bale last year?
We had 300 bales of 300 pounds each. So it's a lot.
That's a lot. So we've only got through a fraction of the bales that we have. We have another whole barn full of bales down by the entrance of the farm. So that's been a little bit frustrating. I'd say we've only run probably 20 days this year, maybe 25 days, something like that. And then the final thing is that the machinery has broken down, and that I would say that's mainly been because of the electrical control systems have been very flaky. The e-stops were flaky, and that gave us trouble. Yeah, I'll turn it over to Jacob, and maybe he can describe in a little more detail the pain and suffering.
Yeah, thank you for that, Larry. So I started this role last year, and this tent wasn't built then. So by the time we got all of our equipment in place for me to really be able to use this machinery last year, the winter came in and prevented me from doing that. So this is really my first season getting to use it, and I've learned a lot. Like Larry mentioned, we definitely had a lot of electrical issues at the start. We've overcome some of those. I still seem to have, it wants to pretend to jam up every once in a while. I know it could work through that material, but it senses an over voltage and doesn't want to feed that material through. So we worked through that. Like Larry said, the e-stops were finicky, not in the fact that they didn't work. Thank God, we always want our e-stops to work. But they were overworking, and they were pretending they were always on, which wouldn't actually allow me to run the machine without turning all the e-stops off, which also isn't what you want to do. So we had to do a little bit of rewiring. I'm thankful I have gotten past some of the electrical issues, and I have physically broken the machine a few times. You know, that's a good problem when you're moving on to new problems. So I've been able to do some repairs on that, and I'm sure I'll have many repairs to come in the future. What you can see behind me, I've got a lot of bales in here. Again, we've got two different buildings to store these bales. Most of the bales in here are the Ursa Alta that we grew and harvested last year. A lot of our other varieties are in the other barn. I'm going to be processing a bale of Futura 83 today. I stick with Futura 83 right now because, like we said, there's a lot of finicky issues with the machine, and I know that that's a reliable variety that can feed its way through the system. I'm excited to figure out how these other varieties perform in terms of decortication, how they feed through the machine, how they separate the herd from the fiber. So we're going to continue to get a lot more data from that from the rest of this season and then the following seasons after this. So on the QR code handout, we have a whole description of what all the components of this machine are and what the different processes are. But we're going to end up getting 5 streams of material out of this. So I'm going to feed the bale in, and we're going to cut a mat of that. And so we're going to slowly unroll this bale and try to feed an even mat of material through a series of 6 decorticator rollers that aggressively go faster and have more decortication ability to try to break that stalk and flick that herd from those fibers. that herd is going to end up falling down onto a conveyor and continue to work its way through the system, while the fiber is going to be the first output on the right-hand side on our current perspective. As the rest of that material works through, we then go to a herd cleaner, which basically acts as a cotton gin to take any additional fiber that's on the herd out of the herd before we get into the herd cleaning system, where then it takes that herd and sizes it according to small, medium, or large fractions. So those are the 5 streams of material I get: is dirty, long line fiber, short fiber from the herd cleaner, and then small, medium, and large scale herd, which can all be used for different applications. I'm really excited. We're going to be hosting a hemp building workshop next week, where we're going to be taking some of the herd that we've grown and processed here in New York and using it in building applications here in New York. So that's really the goal of this program, is to figure out how we can grow this crop, process this crop, and use this crop here in the state to provide farmers, processors, manufacturers more opportunity. So we're slowly working towards that goal. I'm going to have a lot of hurdles to get through that, but that's our goal, is to get to that point to provide that opportunity for those different consumers. So with that being said, I'm going to start to turn on the machine. I'm going to have some of our technicians here help me. You guys can view from whatever angle you'd like. Just be careful of some of the cables there, and I've got some road closed posts, road closed signposts, and some cones. Please do not step onto the trailer while it's being operated. If anyone would like to see the machinery after it's about done being operated, I can guide you on after that. Yes, Tyler.
What sorts of things are you making next week for the building workshop?
So we're going to be showing how to make hempcrete in 3 different applications. So one of the applications is going to be a tamp in place by Sergey from Hempire. So that's the standard mixing, pouring, tamping it down. The second demonstration from Americhandra is going to be their Ear Easy blow-in-place system, where we make a mixture that goes through a pressurized gun that you can spray onto a wall. And the third system is going to be by a company, Bison Biocomposites, and they make what's called a flowable system. So you can take your wall cavity, put in a little tube, and then flow your material in to fill that cavity up. In addition to that, like Larry said, we got Hempitecture that's participating with us in this event. We got some hemp insulation batting that they've made. We've got more of it back there, so feel free to come look at this, feel this, touch this, and be able to show you the types of end products we could make if we take our dirty long line fiber, clean it up a bit, and be able to get it to a manufacturer that can do something like this or similar. Any other questions before I start the machine? Yes. I mean, there's definitely a lot of bottlenecks in the hemp industry. Decortication does seem to be the overall looming ghost over everyone. Is once we grow all this material, how do we effectively and profitably process that in a way that we can do it at scale in a short amount of time? So there's a couple different companies that are trying to do different things like that. The typical problem with that is your entry point into these machines are a very high dollar amount, and so finding companies that want to take that leap of faith and test something out like that is also challenging. So yeah, that's been a bottleneck to prevent people from getting in and exploring this and figuring out what are the best opportunities we have or the different paths to go with that. Yes, Terry.
Have you looked at shredding before you run the decorticator?
I have not at this time because of how the machine is designed to feed the material in from a bale. So that would take additional attachments at the front to be able to do that. I'm not opposed to it, but I'd like to figure out how to work with it as it is before I go about changing too much of it.
Yeah, so I'm just going to wrap up sort of the formal discussion that we have, and then so that Jacob can start the machine and you can explore around the machine, and if you need to take off, basically our formal presentation will be done. What I want to do is give you a preview of our next step. If you come back next year, what you're going to see. So in last year's state budget, the state budgeted for us $5 million for what we call the bioeconomy hub. It's all capital equipment money. There's no operation money or salary money. So don't send me your resume because I can't hire anyone. But $3 million of that will be to build a building that can house all of this equipment. So our intention is to take it off the trailer, put it into a building that's built to the specs that our code enforcement officer will agree to. If you do want to buy a trailer with basically 0 miles on it, I would probably then sell you a trailer. Then we can use this barn entirely for bale storage because we won't need to put the trailer inside anymore. That would be nice. We also have $1 million to buy new equipment, and the focus there will be on fiber cleaning equipment, a card system, maybe even a scutching line. What you see across the road is all fiber flax. So we're also starting a flax breeding program. And to process that flax into long line fiber, we would need a scutching line. So that's, I'm hoping that we can build and equip a facility with this $4 million in total that would allow us to process both hemp into hurd, long line fiber, and flax into long line fiber. That's the ultimate goal. And then the next goal would be for the state to give me operating funds to hire someone to run that facility. Otherwise, it'll sit here empty.
Or keep me employed.
And keep Jacob employed, of course. The other $1 million is going to our collaborators at RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and they also host the Fashion Innovation Center. So they are focused both on developing novel building materials out of hemp, and one of their engineers has designed a hemp-based rebar that's really cool. They're working also, I think, with Hempitecture to develop a outdoor wall sheeting made out of hemp. And again, they're keyed in with the fashion industry in New York to try to bring natural fibers, both wool and hemp, back into production in New York State. So the final $1 million will go to RPI for them to buy equipment, a pultruder, if you know what that is. They really want a fancy pultruder. And that's what they make the rebar with. So hopefully we'll have at least the footprint, if not a little bit further on the building. It's going to sit right here. Hopefully we'll have 3-phase power and we won't need the generator anymore. And we'll be well on our way to, again, establishing a processing center, a pilot plant facility where businesses can come in, develop products, where we can produce pilot scale amounts of material, you know, a few tons, many tons, to give to companies to get them started and established here in New York. Questions about that? Eric?
When's the flax field day?
So I tried very hard. This is our first big field of flax. Well, we did grow 2 acres of flax last year. I tried very hard to get the puller, turner, and baler up here from PA Flax Project. I'm not sure it's going to work out. This crop, they told me, based on their experience, it should be harvested when it's golden brown.
It's not golden brown.
It's not golden brown. It was golden brown when it got really dry and hot, and now it's rained a bit and it's turned green again.
It looks really nice.
It's pretty weed-free.
It looks better than anything I saw in PA this year.
Thank you. Yeah. I used herbicide, by the way. All their funding comes through the organic crop system, so they are not using herbicide. So again, herbicide makes a big difference. But if you go back and talk to Heidi and Bill, tell them how nice the field looks, and that they should bring their puller, turner, and baler up.
I'll send some pictures in a few minutes.
Okay. Other questions? Yep, we should start. Again.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.